Well, good afternoon. My name is Edie Yao, and I serve as an Executive Council volunteer for AARP California. Welcome to everyone who is joining us live. Today we have here our special guest, Ken Yeager, former City of San Jose Council member and Santa Clara County Supervisor, and current Community Foundation Executive Director of the Bay Area Municipal Elections Committee, to talk about BayMEC's latest project, Queer Silicon Valley, which celebrates and documents the milestones and accomplishments of the LGBTQ community in Santa Clara County. I want to encourage all of you to share this stream now on your own social media page, so interested friends and family may also participate in today's conversation. Also, please feel free to ask questions you may have for Ken in the comment box. We will answer a few questions live towards the end of today's conversation. And if you're not familiar with AARP California is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that works on behalf of our 38 million members nationally and 3.3 million members statewide to enhance the quality of life for all people as we age. To that end, AARP is thrilled to have Ken Yeager here with us today. So Ken, welcome.
Thanks, Edie.
And you probably don't remember this, but I met you several years ago at one of the Rainbow Chamber events. I think you were a panelist or something, but so really happy to see you, and congratulations on all this great work. So can you tell us more about the Bay Area Municipal Elections Committee Community Foundation and your latest project, Queer Silicon Valley? How did this project come about?
I am so excited about this project, and ARP members and others are just the perfect audience for this really incredible website. I think we know, particularly in the LGBTQ community, but in a lot of marginalized communities, our history is not being recorded. And why I was so honored that you asked me to be on your show, if you will, is that for older people in Santa Clara County, particularly LGBT people, but throughout the state as well, this is their history. And there's no place that they can go to access it. And so particularly, again, in Santa Clara County, a big one portion of it, certainly not all of it, one portion is the HIV/AIDS story. And one of the things that has been so gratifying for me is that people of my generation who went through that terrible epidemic have never really been able to reflect on it 30 years later, 40 years later. And so it gives them a chance to remember their role, the loved ones that they lost. And that would be true for, straight people who lost brothers and sisters and friends. And so we go, back in time, talking about all of these events up to the current time. I'll go over the website in a second, but we have a timeline that goes from basically 1970 to current. And so younger people can see their history being written as they've been doing things, as well as maybe appreciate all of the work that went on before them. We're lucky in San Jose, Santa Clara County, that we're as progressive as we are, but there were decades where that wasn't true. So how did that all happen? And that's what I try to do with the website.
Yeah, that's fantastic, right? What strikes me is the quote from a good saying from Carl Sagan, right? You have to know the past to understand the present. And I've checked out the website. It is impressive to be able to archive so much history and so much that I really didn't know growing up in Santa Clara County.
Yeah.
So do you want to highlight some of this website for us?
Yeah, we'll go through it very quickly. And I should say, so it's queersiliconvalley.org is the website. And so we're going to zip right through it just to sort of give you an idea. And the slides are going to be available, but you can also just go to the website. And what we're going to really do is just to have you have some idea of the a tremendous amount of content. So we're just going to zip right through, there's an introduction, there's a little discussion on how to use the site. We can speed it up a little here. So this is the the opening page. And so then what we have is about 12 different, I'll call them pages, where you can click on all of these and you can keep on going through here. Just, I mean, the different topics, different areas. You want to know about marriage equality, you want to know about the gay bars, you want to know about the press, you want to know about community centers. We've got a timeline, keep going here. And so this is, we have about 200 entries on our timeline. And so we're just going to show you a couple of the things that you want to look. The ARIS Project, very well known, the Billy DeFrank Center, when was that started? We have all of the organizations when they were created. We have a lot of information about gay pride, so that's on the timeline too. We have all the organizations that I could possibly find in the last 50 years. So many of them don't exist, but and many still do. So we have all that information. None of it's lost. You can keep going. One of the sections we have is LGBTQ in tech. If you want to learn more about that, we have an incredible Office of LGBTQ Affairs. We're the only county in the country that has something like that. So you can learn about that. Again, the whole, all of the good news and the bad news about marriage equality, all of the constitutional amendments forbidding it. Sister Spirit, a very well-known lesbian bookstore that no longer exists, but we need to tell the story. The Latinx community, often overlooked in history, but we really went out of our way to record what was going on there. The trans community, we have some amazing services that are now available. And so this is a good opportunity for people to learn more about those as well. All about, you know, everybody knows Pride, you know, Silicon Valley Pride, but we wanted to really record the history of that. Most of the bars have come and gone, but here we have a map, and we tried to record everyone that we could find. Elected officials, I'm honored to be in that stage, so that's nice. But everybody who's ever been elected, the gay press does not exist anymore, but we tell the history of all of the various ones that came along. Billy DeFrank Center, our LGBTQ community center, long history. They had lots of different locations, and we track all of those as well. Crimes really against LGBTQ people. I think we know about the amount of hate crimes that exist towards our community, and we document those as well. You can keep on zipping here. If you have any sort of comments or photos or anything, or be on the mailing list, you can fill out this section here. Why don't we zip along and see what we have here? These are some of the sponsors. Anybody who wants to have their organization be a sponsor, let me know. It'd be great to add you. And I guess that's it. So you can really just spend hours on this. And if it's part of your history, I think you'll find it very rewarding. But as even you had said, Edie, I think people's reaction is, I didn't know all of that. And it just makes my heart feel warm that again, this is a way to introduce people. We're in trying times, as we know, and we don't know what the future is going to be. But as you were saying with Carl Sagan, a quote, once you know the road we've traveled and what we had to overcome, I think we'll be stronger when if our community is under attack again, how to respond. Yeah, absolutely. I recall talking to some folks in the past, and some of our elder LGBTQ members said, you know, the youth today, they don't appreciate all the privileges they have now, and we paved the way. And so I think this is really important to be able to have this documented, to appreciate how far we've come, right? One of the things I noted, because I did play around, I love the interactive timeline for so many of these categories and topics, and I appreciated how much of
people of color are woven in there. And you mentioned, the Latinx community, and that you all worked really hard to make sure to document that and preserve the history of that movement, and that intersectionality of, LGBTQ and people of color. So I appreciate that. I was wondering, in you collecting all this, what were some of the most surprising findings for you?
Well, and you can imagine, I mean, I've been around for a while, if I may say that to a group, do ARP.
Uh-huh.
And so I knew a lot of it myself, but as I even went back further in time, I learned things that I just didn't know either. And a lot of them was individuals who some are still around, and I was able to contact them and do a Zoom interview with them, and that sort of really helped the articles that we wrote. And so I really wanted to again recognize them and honor their work in the past. And so I get surprised how many people were involved in these things. And I'm glad you mentioned the whole section on Latinx, but it's also true with the Asian, the API community. It only made sense to me that they had organizations that they had created that never really made it often into the gay mainstream. So you could do old magazines, old newspapers, and not read about them. But I always knew that they were there, and so this gave me an opportunity to go back and include their stories, and it was very rewarding for me, and I think many people in our growing minority community really appreciate it.
That's terrific. So according to the 2018 AARP study, Maintaining Dignity, Understanding and Responding to the Challenges Facing Older LGBT Americans, we know that older LGBTQ Americans live in all sizes of cities, towns, suburbs, rural areas, and people do tend to seek out LGBTQ-friendly local communities wherever they are. However progressive or conservative the region is. What do you think makes the LGBTQ community in Silicon Valley unique? And how would you compare it to other LGBTQ communities in other parts of the state or country?
Excellent question, and one that's a little hard for me to answer. I hope to have more historians explore the website, and maybe those that have sort of that national perspective would be able to say, well, gosh, that's unique that San Jose did that, or well, that's in line with what happened in other communities around that period of time. And so you sort of get that sense. I know there were various things that we have done here that haven't happened elsewhere, even though political movements cross the country, and people sort of pick that up. I think what makes me excited about San Jose, and maybe what's one of the reasons why I came up here when I was 18 to go to San Jose State from Southern California, and I knew that I could not be gay in Riverside, California. It just was not going to happen. But I always felt that I would be safe here, and so places like San Jose sort of attract people who are looking for more like-minded, more progressive areas. And so, but we're very suburban. And I think that's what makes our story different than, let's say, San Francisco's. One of the things that I know, and I certainly included this, when I was interviewing people, is that there wasn't the established organizations that you would have in San Francisco that had been around for a long period of time. And so if we wanted something like that, we had to do it ourselves. And that's part of my story with creating the Bay Area Municipal Elections Committee in 1984, because there were no gay political organizations because of what had happened before with the voters absolutely rejecting anything to do with gay rights. There was nothing available. So it isn't like I could, I'll join this group or I'll join that group. You had to do it yourself. Right. And that's what's sort of fun about all of these people. They had the initiative and saw the value of their own work. And so when you have we talked about Sister Spirit just briefly. There wasn't another lesbian bookstore that, that was around. Unless you wanted to go to San Francisco or Oakland, you had to create it here. The same thing with the community center. I mean, all those type of things. Or when a crime happened against an LGBTQ person, well, you had to rally yourself. And so anyway, that's what to me really makes that an exciting story, urban as we are. And that's why we had so much, gay magazines and gay newspapers and gay bars, because that's how you communicated with each other. It's so different now. Of course, with COVID, all the bars are closed for the moment, but there's really only a couple left. So anyway, which I think sort of creates more of that feeling of isolation. And here, if I may, with this website, is that people then can interact with it. And if they have their own stories, get it out there. Let's put it on the site. And I think that's one way for people to sort of join their own community and have that dialogue at this, time of the shutdown, that I think is all the more important that we do.
That's terrific. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. And again, for those who are just joining us on the live stream, my name is Edie Yao with AARP California. And today we are here with special guest Ken Yeager, Community Foundation Executive Director of the Bay Area Municipal Elections Committee, to talk about BayMEC's latest project, Queer Silicon Valley, and all that they've done to celebrate and document the milestones and accomplishments of the LGBTQ plus community in Santa Clara County. If you have any questions for Ken, please put them in the comments. And we do have a question here, Ken. What other work does BayMEC do? And also, are you familiar with similar organizations in other parts of California?
Yeah, there's several, which is exciting, and some of it is I've sort of learned from them, and I've been in conversation with them. I had to learn a lot to get this all together here. But San Diego certainly has one. But oftentimes there were offices, or I wouldn't say museums per se, but workspace where some of these organizations operated. But of course, everything's closed down. And so that makes it a little different. But depending on where people are living, some of the big cities certainly do. San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Santa Cruz does as well, are sort of collecting this history. And so I think, when I was talking a little bit about trends, I think that's what's sort of happening in ways that had never done before. And maybe it's because as people get older, it's really amazing getting older, because you look back and you go, well, that was important. But when you're doing it, it's just work that you're doing. You don't think you're creating history. And then 30 years go by, and then you look back and you go, oh. And so I think people of my generation and maybe a little older than I am are the ones that are sort of working on these projects. But I would say you can always, depending on which town or county you're in, you can always Google that name and history or whatever and see if other ones exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, the foundation. So the nonprofit is the BayMEC Community Foundation, and that's sort of the parent organization. And Queer Silicon Valley is one of its projects that's under it. At this point, it certainly is the main one. We've done. There's not to get this too complicated, but there was the political organization, BayMEC Community Foundation. I'm sorry, BayMEC Bay Area Municipal Elections Committee is a political PAC that I had started with Wigsy Severson in 1984, and so that's a separate entity. That's Political Action Committee, and it created this foundation. Part of the reason for that is that the foundation can accept money, tax deductible corporate sponsorship, political government sponsorship, sort of to work on projects. And we had applied for a history grant from the county of Santa Clara, and we got that. And so that really then gave us that initial infusion of funds to start Queer Silicon Valley. I basically volunteer all of my time for that, which is great. And so at this point, this is our main project. Again, even though we do other things as well.
That's great. Well, it's excellent. Thank you. We have another question here. In what ways has COVID-19 impacted the LGBTQ community that perhaps mainstream efforts may not have addressed?
Oh, well, of course, COVID has affected us all.
Right.
We could go down the list, and I think it's been particularly harmful for older people, mainly. They do need to shelter in place because they can be at high risk. I mean, we're all at risk, but you really it's impacting our age group very much. But hopefully they've been able to find ways. Most organizations try to have regular monthly meetings on Zoom. You need to sort of search, for that. But not all older people are comfortable with the web and interacting this way. And so you really want to make sure that you have some access to them. What I worry about, like even at the Billy DeFrank Center, which had so many groups that would come in depending on what kind of issue, a lot of them mental health or whatever, or young, are no longer meeting. And so that makes it very difficult as well. So it's a big concern. It's a big concern. And thankfully, people are now getting vaccinated. Everybody who's 65 and older, we'll see how long it takes to sort of have that roll out. But my hope is that once that happens, people can sort of open their doors again and meet with people.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think right now I want to bring up an important resource. We do have a publicly available site on AARP, aarp.org/pride for LGBT resources. So that's another place people can look if they're struggling with finding resources that they can connect to. And we have maybe time for one more question, and this was my question I was thinking about too. You mentioned that you want this website to be a place to really continue to build and to preserve more stories. So if someone has a story to share or submit, how do they go about doing that?
I can't wait for more stories to come and more photos. I just very briefly, we're doing a documentary as well on the whole project, which is great. And we're also going to have a museum exhibit at History San Jose. We're sort of gathering material there. We'll sort of see what COVID does as far as when people are actually able to visit it. But we really need those old photos. We need, if you have old newspapers, old artifacts, clothing, you name it. We'd love to have it. And we could certainly take photos depending on what it is and put it on the website. But if it's something that we can use in the museum, or if a lot of things we're looking for as well are old videotapes, particularly for the documentary, where we can play it and then you can have a voiceover, so you just don't have a talking head, if you will. We did get some old films from the Gay Pride Parade and the Dykes on Bikes and all of that kind of stuff, and so that makes it very easy. But the more stories that we hear from older folks, whatever their experience might have been with any of the organizations or with the bars or the imperial courts, we know people got involved way back when. And so our website, and there's a section there that you can put your comment, or if you want to contact me, you can do that as well. But it's all pretty easy. So if you want to know how to donate or contribute, just ask me and I'll get back to you.
That's perfect. Great. Well, I want to encourage everyone to go check out the site, queersiliconvalley.org. It's such a tremendous wealth. And, I lived in San Francisco for a while, but grew up in Santa Clara County and back here. And it's great to see, San Jose being one of the largest cities to make this be loud and proud. about the history of our LGBTQ community. So thank you, Ken, for all your work on this. I think it's really impressive. So for anyone who joined late, we had a wonderful opportunity to speak with Ken Yeager, Community Foundation Executive Director of the Bay Area Municipal Elections Committee, to talk about BayMEC's latest project, Queer Silicon Valley. And this conversation is recorded, so if you missed anything, you can go back and watch it again. Want to thank you again, Ken, for joining us, and to our viewers, we hope you all have a wonderful day, and thank you for joining us for a Facebook Live Webinar Wednesday conversation. So with that,
Great.
take care, Ken, and thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
This is wonderful. Thank you very much.